Welcome to Beyond the Screen Economic Transition. Today, we focus on one of the defining issues of Zambia's economy, debt. By 2021, Zambia had already defaulted on its external debt, becoming the first African country to do so during the pandemic. Borrowing, repayment challenges, and negotiations became central to economic discussions. Today, we examine how Zambia arrived at this point and what debt meant for development and public services. Join me in this discussion after the break. In the previous episode, we looked at where Zambia's economy stood in 2021, a country under pressure, weighed down by high debt and rising living costs. Today, we go a step deeper. We are asking a very important question. How did Zambia get into so much debt? And why did borrowing become a central issue in our economy? Borrowing itself is not a bad thing. Just like households and businesses, governments borrow to invest in development. Zambia borrowed to build roads, power stations, airports, and other infrastructure meant to support long-term growth. The problem is not borrowing alone. The problem is how much is borrowed, how fast, and how it is repaid. Between roughly 2012 and 2019, Zambia's borrowing increased very quickly. The country issued Eurobonds and took loans from bilateral and commercial lenders to finance large-scale projects. However, economic growth did not increase at the same pace as borrowing. This imbalance slowly pushed the country toward financial stress. Zambia's debt is made up of two main parts: external debt and domestic debt. External debt is money borrowed from outside the country, usually in foreign currency. This becomes risky when the kwacha weakens because repayments become more expensive. Domestic, domestic debts are borrowed locally, often from banks and pension funds. By the time Zambia reached 2020 and 2021, debt repayments were consuming a large share of government revenue. This meant less money was available for social services, salaries, and development programs. Essentially, the government was borrowing more money just to service existing debt, a clear sign that the situation was no longer sustainable. When Zambia failed to meet some of its external debt obligations, the country officially entered default. Default affects trust. Investors become cautious, borrowing becomes more expensive, and economic confidence declines. This is why default was not just a financial event, it was a confidence shock to the economy. Following the default, Zambia had limited options. The government began negotiations with the International Monetary Fund and other development partners. These talks were not about quick money, but about restoring credibility, restructuring debt, and putting the economy on a more disciplined path. For ordinary citizens, debt problems showed up in subtle but powerful ways: reduced public spending, delayed projects, and pressure on subsidies. Even though debt discussions happen at high policy levels, their effects are felt in communities, schools, and households. This episode teaches us an important lesson. Borrowing can support development, but without strong planning, transparency, and repayment capacity, it can also weaken an economy. So, Zambia's debt crisis did not happen overnight. It was as a result of years of borrowing without matching growth and revenue. In the next episode, we will explore how Zambia responded through debt restructuring, IMF programs, and economic reforms, and whether those measures are working. This is Beyond the Screen Economic Transition, and my name is Lawrence Mwanza.